The kitchen light cast harsh shadows across Lena's face as she sat there at 2 in the morning, still wearing that expensive workout gear that never seemed to get sweaty. Her hands were folded like she was about to deliver a business presentation, which should have been my first clue that my life was about to get turned inside out. "Adam, we need to talk," she said, her voice carrying that practiced calm she used when firing people at the insurance company where she worked as HR director. I leaned against the counter, coffee mug in hand, studying my wife of 8 years. Lena had always been beautiful in that sharp, calculating way that made other men stumble over themselves. Tonight, though, something was different. There was a smugness in her green eyes that made my stomach clench. "It's 2 a.m., Lena. Most talks at this hour involve someone being dead or someone being pregnant." I took a sip of coffee, trying to keep my voice light since nobody's called about a funeral. She smiled then, and it wasn't the smile I'd fallen in love with back in college. This was the smile she wore when she'd just landed a big client, or gotten someone she didn't like transferred to another department. "I'm pregnant, Adam. But here's the thing." She paused, watching my face like a scientist observing a lab rat. "I'm not sure if you're the father." The coffee mug slipped from my fingers, shattering against the tile floor. Hot liquid splashed across my bare feet, but I barely felt it. The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a house fire. "What did you just say?" Lena's composure never wavered. If anything, she looked more relaxed now that the bomb had been dropped. I said, "I'm pregnant, and there's a 50-50 chance it's yours. The other 50% belongs to Troy." Troy, her boss, the guy with the perfect teeth and the gym membership he never shut up about. The guy who'd been calling the house at odd hours for work emergencies that always seemed to require Lena's immediate attention. I felt something cold settle in my chest, like ice water replacing blood. How long? How long? What? How long have you been screwing your boss?" She flinched at my tone, but recovered quickly. "That's not important now. What matters is figuring out what we're going to do about this situation." Situation? She called potentially carrying another man's child a situation, like it was a scheduling conflict or a budget shortfall. I walked to the counter, grabbed my phone, and started dialing. My hands were steadier than they had any right to be. "Who are you calling?" Lena asked, and for the first time I heard uncertainty creep into her voice. "DNA testing lab. They do paternity tests. We're going to find out whose baby you're carrying, and we're going to find out fast." "Adam, wait." "Maybe we should talk about this first. There are other considerations." "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "No more talking. No more considerations. You want to play games with paternity? Fine, but we're playing by my rules now." The lab's automated system walks me through scheduling an appointment. Lena sat there watching me with growing alarm as I booked us a slot for the next morning. "There," I said, hanging up. 9 a.m., both of us. We'll have results in 3 days. Lena stood up, smoothing down her designer workout clothes. "You're being unreasonable. This doesn't have to be complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed, and it sounded ugly, even to my own ears. "My wife just told me she's been having an affair and might be pregnant with another man's child. Which part of that isn't supposed to be complicated?" She moved toward the doorway, then stopped. "I'll be staying at my sister's tonight to give you time to process this." "You do that." I was already pulling the broom from the closet to clean up the broken mug. "Oh, and Lena, next time you want to deliver life-changing news, maybe shower off your boyfriend's cologne first. It's a dead giveaway." Her face went white, but she didn't deny it. She just grabbed her purse and walked out, leaving me alone in the kitchen with broken ceramic and the ruins of my marriage. After I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I sat back down at the kitchen table and really looked at the situation. 8 years of marriage, and she'd just blown it up like it was nothing. but the way she delivered the news, so calm and controlled, told me this wasn't a moment of weakness or a mistake she regretted. This was calculated. This was planned. Which meant I needed a plan too. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Project management for a construction company could wait. I had more pressing matters to handle. The DNA lab was one of those sterile medical buildings that smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Lena showed up 5 minutes late, wearing sunglasses indoors like she was some kind of celebrity avoiding paparazzi. "You look tired," I said as we sat in the waiting room. "I didn't sleep well." She kept the sunglasses on, staring straight ahead. Guilty conscience. Stop it, Adam. A nurse called us back, and we went through the process in silence. Cheek swabs, paperwork, payment. The whole thing took 20 minutes. "Results will be available in 72 hours, the technician said. "We'll call the number on file." "Actually," I said, pulling out my wallet, "I'd like to pay extra to have the results sent directly to me. Physical copies to my address." Lena's head snapped toward me. "We agreed they'd call both of us." "No, you assumed they would. I'm paying, so I'm making the decisions." I handed the technician an extra $100. My address only. My phone number only. The technician looked between us, clearly sensing the tension, then pocketed the money and made notes on the file. Outside in the parking lot, Lena finally exploded.
"What the hell is wrong with you? This affects both of us."
"Does it? Because last night it sounded like you'd already made your decision about how this was going to go." I unlocked my truck. "You want to play games, Lena. You want to drop bombs and see what happens? Fine, but don't expect me to follow your script." She grabbed my arm as I opened the door. "Adam, please. We can work this out. We can figure out a way to make this work for everyone." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. Even with the sunglasses, I could see the calculation behind her words. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even particularly worried. She was strategizing. "Everyone? You mean you, me, and Troy? One big happy family." I shook her hand off. "I don't think so." That afternoon, I drove to Mickey's garage, where my old friend Danny worked as a mechanic. Danny owed me a favor from when I'd helped him move last year, and he had skills I needed. "You want me to what?" Danny asked, wiping grease off his hands with a shop rag. "Put a tracker on my wife's car. Nothing fancy, just something that'll tell me where she goes." Danny's weathered face creased into a frown. "Adam, that sounds like divorce court evidence gathering. You sure you want to go down that road?" "She's been cheating on me with her boss. Might be pregnant with his kid. I need to know what I'm dealing with." "Man, I'm sorry." Danny thought for a moment. "I can't do anything illegal, but if you happen to buy a GPS tracker from the electronics store and needed help figuring out where to put it on your own wife's car, well, that's just helping a friend with automotive questions." An hour later, I had a small magnetic GPS tracker attached to the underside of Lena's BMW. The app on my phone would tell me everywhere she went. That evening, I sat in my truck outside the Crowbar, a dive bar where the construction crews and factory workers went to complain about their lives. It wasn't my usual scene, but I needed information, and bars were where people talked. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and the smell of fried food. I ordered a beer and struck up a conversation with the bartender, a guy named Rick, who'd been pouring drinks in this town for 20 years. "You know anything about Troy Benton?" I asked, after we'd talked about baseball for a while. Rick's expression darkened. "That pretty boy from the insurance company?" "Yeah, I know him. Comes in here sometimes with different women throwing money around like he's some kind of big shot. Why? He's my wife's boss. Just wondering what kind of guy he is. The kind who thinks his money makes him better than everyone else. The kind who hits on waitresses and leaves lousy tips." Rick leaned closer. "Word is he's got a thing for married women. Likes the challenge, you know." My grip tightened on the beer bottle. Is that so? Yeah. My cousin Diane works at that gym he goes to. Says he's always got some married woman hanging around buying them expensive workout clothes and jewelry. Real piece of work. I finished my beer and left Rick a generous tip. Outside, I checked the GPS app on my phone. Lena's car was at the fitness palace across town at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday night. The gym's parking lot was mostly empty when I arrived. I found Lena's BMW parked near the back next to a silver Porsche that screamed midlife crisis. Through the gym's windows, I could see Lena and Troy on the treadmills, but they weren't running. They were talking, standing close together, and even from a distance, their body language told a story. I took out my phone and started recording. 20 minutes later, they came out together. Troy had his hand on the small of Lena's back, guiding her toward their cars. When they reached the BMW, he pushed her against the driver's door and kissed her. Not a friendly peck, a deep, hungry kiss that went on for nearly a minute. I got it all on video. They separated, said something I couldn't hear, and got into their respective cars. Lena headed home. Troy went in the opposite direction. I followed him. Troy lived in one of those expensive developments where all the houses looked the same, and the lawns were maintained by professional services. His house was a 2-story colonial with a 3-car garage and a circular driveway. I parked across the street and watched him go inside. Lights came on throughout the house, and I could see him moving around through the windows. He was alone. My phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I laughed out loud in the empty truck. She was probably already planning her alibi for tomorrow night's work session. But now I had proof. Video evidence of the affair. And in 3 days, I'd have DNA results that would tell me whether the baby was mine or his. The question was, what was I going to do with that information? As I drove home, I realized I was looking forward to finding out. The DNA results arrived on Friday morning in a plain manila envelope. I sat in my kitchen holding the envelope and listening to Lena shower upstairs. She had been staying at her sister's most of the week, only coming home to get clothes and maintain the pretense that we were still a functioning couple. I opened the envelope. The baby wasn't mine. I read the results 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. 0 probability of paternity. The child Lena was carrying belonged to Troy Benton, not to me. I folded the papers carefully and put them in my safe, along with the video I'd taken of them kissing in the parking lot. Then I poured myself a cup of coffee and waited for my wife to come downstairs. "Morning," Lena said when she appeared in the kitchen, dressed for work in a sharp black suit. She looked nervous, which was unusual for her. "Any word from the lab?" "Not yet," I lied smoothly. "They said it could take up to 5 days." Relief flickered across her face. "Right. Well, I'm sure everything will work out." "I'm sure it will." After she left, I called my buddy Steve, who worked security at the office building where Lena's insurance company was located. Steve and I had played softball together for years, and he was the kind of guy who noticed everything. "Hey, Adam. What's up, Steve?" "I need a favor. It's about Lena." There was a pause. "Everything okay, man?" "Not really. I think she's having an affair with her boss, Troy Benton. I need to know if you've seen anything unusual." Steve was quiet for a long moment. "Adam, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me about that." My stomach dropped. "So you have seen something." "They've been staying late together a lot, like really late. And I've seen them leave together several times. Last week, I saw them in the parking garage after hours. They were, well, they weren't discussing quarterly reports, if you know what I mean." "Can you get me into the building after hours? I want to see their offices. I can't let you break into anything, but if you happen to visit me during my shift and we took a walk around the building, the hallways are public space." That night, I met Steve at the office building. He led me through the corridors to the executive floor where Lena and Troy had their offices. "Their offices are right next to each other," Steve said, pointing down the hallway, "and there's a connecting door between them. Supposed to be for meetings, but it's convenient for other things. Yeah, and look at this." Steve showed me the security log on his tablet. "See these entries? Troy's keycard shows him entering the building at normal business hours, but leaving really late, sometimes not until midnight or later. And Lena's entries match his exactly." I studied the log. The pattern was clear. They'd been staying late together at least 3 times a week for the past 2 months. "There's something else," Steve said. "Last month, I caught them coming out of the supply closet together. Lena's hair was messed up, and Troy was straightening his tie. They claimed they were looking for printer paper at 9 p.m. That's what I said. I thanked Steve and left the building with a plan forming in my mind. I had video evidence of their affair, DNA proof that the baby wasn't mine, and now witness testimony about their workplace behavior. But I wasn't ready to play my cards yet. I wanted more. The next morning, I drove to the fitness palace where Lena and Troy had their romantic workout sessions. The gym was busy with the weekend crowd, all of them sweating on machines and pretending to enjoy it. I paid for a day pass and wandered around until I found what I was looking for: the locker rooms. Specifically, the men's locker room, where Troy kept his stuff. The attendant was a college kid named Jake, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I struck up a conversation about the gym's facilities, then casually mentioned that I was thinking about joining. "You know Troy Benton?" I asked. "He recommended this place." Jake's face soured. "Yeah, I know him. Real piece of work. Thinks he owns the place." "How so?" "Always demanding special treatment. Wants his locker cleaned, his towels folded a certain way, and he's constantly bringing different women in here, showing off. Last week he had some blonde woman in the steam room with him. Pretty sure that's against the rules, but he tips the manager to look the other way." "Blonde woman?" "Yeah, real put together. Looked like she had money. They were in there for like an hour." Lena was blonde, and she definitely looked like she had money. "You know what really bugs me about guys like that?" Jake continued. "They think their money means they can do whatever they want. Like last month, he asked me to put a dead fish in some guy's locker as a prank. Offered me $50. An idea began forming in my mind. Did you do it? Hell no, that's disgusting, but it shows you what kind of person he is. I left the gym with a new appreciation for Troy Benton's character. He was exactly the kind of man who would seduce another man's wife and think it was funny. That afternoon, I drove to the seafood market downtown and bought the smelliest fish I could find. Then I went to the hardware store and picked up a few other supplies. If Troy wanted to play pranks, I'd show him how it was done. Monday morning, I put my plan into action. I arrived at the fitness palace early, before the morning rush, and paid for another day pass. The same college kid, Jake, was working the front desk. "Back again?" he asked. "Still thinking about joining? Mind if I check out the locker room facilities one more time?" He waved me through without much interest. The men's locker room was nearly empty at 7 a.m. I found Troy's locker easily enough. It was one of the premium ones, with his name engraved on a little brass plate. The lock was a simple combination model. I pulled out my phone and called the gym's main number. "Fitness Palace, this is Jake." "Hey, this is Troy Benton. I'm running late this morning and I can't remember my locker combination. Can you look it up for me?" Sure, Mr. Forbidden. Let me check." "Okay, it's 0847. Thanks." I hung up and opened Troy's locker. Inside were expensive workout clothes, protein bars, and a bottle of cologne that probably cost more than most people's car payments. I placed the fish, a particularly ripe mackerel, inside his gym bag and closed everything back up. Then I went home and waited. My phone rang at 10:30. Adam. It was Lena, and she sounded upset. "Have you heard from Troy today? Your boss?" Why would I hear from your boss?
Someone played a horrible prank on him at the gym. Put a dead fish in his locker.
He thinks maybe you did it. I managed to sound genuinely surprised. Me? Why would I put a fish in some guy's locker? I don't even know where he works out. I know. I told him you wouldn't do something like that. But he's really upset at him. He's talking about calling the police. Let him call the police. What's he going to tell them? Someone put a fish in his gym locker? They'll laugh at him. There was a pause. You really didn't do this. Lena, I've got better things to do than play pranks on your coworkers. After she hung up, I allowed myself a small smile. Round one to me. But Troy wasn't done. That evening, as I was leaving work, I found him waiting by my truck in the company parking lot. He was still wearing his expensive suit, but his perfect hair was messed up and his face was red with anger. We need to talk, he said. Do we? I don't think we've been introduced. I kept my voice casual, but I was ready for trouble. Troy was bigger than me, but I'd been boxing at the local gym for years. I knew how to handle myself. Cut the crap. You know who I am, and I know who you are, and I know you put that fish in my locker. I have no idea what you're talking about. He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his size. Stay away from me, and stay away from my business. You don't want to mess with me. Your business? I laughed. Is that what you call sleeping with my wife? Business? His face went pale, then red again. I don't know what Lena's told you, but she didn't have to tell me anything. I have eyes and a camera. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot from the video I'd taken in the gym parking lot. Nice technique, by the way. Very romantic. Troy's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually swing at me, but then he seemed to remember where we were. A busy parking lot with plenty of witnesses. This isn't over, he said. No, it's not. But you might want to think about what you're getting yourself into. I'm not some pushover husband who's going to quietly disappear. I fight back. He walked away without another word, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. He was rattled. Good. That night I went to the Crowbar and bought a round of drinks for everyone at the bar. It was a Tuesday, so the crowd was small but talkative. You guys know anything about the insurance company downtown? I asked casually. Beacon Insurance? Said a guy named Pete who worked road construction. Yeah, my ex-wife used to work there. Said it was a real snake pit. Lot of office politics and backstabbing. I heard there's some drama going on with the executives. I said something about affairs and whatnot. The bartender, Rick, leaned in. You talking about that Troy Benton character? Yeah. Word is he's been messing around with one of the married women who works there. HR director or something? No kidding. Yeah, my buddy's girlfriend works in accounting there. Says everyone knows about it, but nobody talks about it because Troy's got connections with the big bosses. What kind of connections? His uncle owns like 30% of the company. Family money. That's how he got his job in the first place. This was news to me. I'd assumed Troy had earned his position, but apparently he was just another rich kid playing with daddy's money. So he can pretty much do whatever he wants? I asked. Pretty much. At least, that's what everyone thinks. I finished my beer and left, but not before making sure the story about Troy and the HR director had spread to everyone in the bar. Small towns loved gossip, and the Crowbar was gossip central. By Thursday, I could see the effects of my campaign. When I stopped by the office building to have lunch with Steve, he told me that people were starting to talk about Lena and Troy. It's getting around, he said. Someone in accounting asked me if it was true that Troy was sleeping with his assistant. I corrected them, told them it was the HR director, not his assistant. How's Lena handling it? She looks stressed, really stressed. And they're not staying late together anymore. Haven't seen them leave together all week. That evening, Lena came home early for the first time in months. She looked exhausted and worried.
"We need to talk,"
she said.
"About what?" "People are talking about me at work, saying things. Ugly things."
What kind of things? She sat down at the kitchen table and put her head in her hands.
"They're saying I'm having an affair with Troy. That I'm some kind of office."
I sat down across from her. Are you?
"What?"
Are you having an affair with Troy? She looked up at me with tears in her eyes.
"Adam, please. This is serious. My reputation is being destroyed."
That's not an answer.
It's complicated."
No, it's not complicated. Either you're sleeping with him or you're not. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a small voice,
"Yes."
"How long?"
3 months.
"And the baby?" Another pause.
"I don't know. That's why we need the test results."
I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded DNA results. I placed them on the table between us. "We already have them." Her face went white.
"What do they say?"
"What do you think they say, Lena?" She unfolded the papers with shaking hands and read them. When she finished, she looked up at me with something that might have been fear.
"Adam, I can explain."
"No need. The results explain everything." I stood up. "You're carrying another man's child, and you've been lying to me for months. I think that's pretty clear."
"What are you going to do?"
I smiled, and I could see her flinch at the expression on my face. "I'm going to destroy you. Both of you." The next morning, I made copies of everything. The DNA results, the photos and video of Lena and Troy together, the security logs Steve had shown me, and a detailed timeline of their affair. Then, I put it all in a manila envelope and addressed it to the CEO of Beacon Insurance. But I didn't mail it yet. I had bigger plans. Instead, I drove to the fitness palace and had another conversation with Jake, the desk attendant. "That guy Troy Benton still giving you trouble?" I asked. Jake rolled his eyes. "Every day." "Yesterday he complained that his towel wasn't fluffy enough. I mean, who complains about towel fluffiness?" "Sounds like someone should teach him some humility." "Yeah, well, good luck with that. His membership fees probably pay my salary." I leaned closer. "What if I told you there was a way to mess with him that wouldn't get you in trouble?" Jake's eyes lit up with interest. "I'm listening." 20 minutes later, I left the gym. With Jake's promise to help me with a little project for $50 and the satisfaction of getting back at Troy, he was willing to do quite a lot. That afternoon, I visited Danny at the garage again. "I need another favor," I told him. "What now?" "I need you to make Troy Benton's car very, very obvious." Danny grinned. "What did you have in mind?" "Something that says home wrecker without actually damaging the vehicle. I don't want to do anything illegal." "I think I can help you with that." We spent an hour planning, and by the time I left, Danny was as excited about the project as I was. The next phase of my campaign began that weekend. On Saturday morning, Jake called me from the gym. "He's here," he said, "in the steam room with that blonde woman again." "Perfect. Give me 10 minutes." I arrived at the fitness palace and found Jake waiting for me with a master key. "They'll be in there for at least half an hour," he said. "They always are." We went to Troy's locker and opened it up. Inside, I placed a dozen flyers I'd had printed up at the copy shop. Each one had a photo of Troy and Lena kissing in the parking lot, along with the text, "Home wrecker." "This man destroys marriages for fun. When he opens his locker, these will fall out all over the floor," I explained to Jake, "and you'll be right there to help clean them up very publicly." "This is beautiful," Jake said, admiring the flyers. "Can I keep one as a souvenir?" Meanwhile, Danny was working on Troy's Porsche in the gym parking lot. He'd brought magnetic signs that looked like they came from a professional business. They read, "Cheaters Taxi Service. We'll steal your wife," with a phone number that went to a disconnected voicemail. "These magnets are strong," Danny explained. "He'll have to work to get them off, and by the time he notices them, half the town will have seen him driving around." We finished our preparations and waited. At 11:30, Troy and Lena emerged from the gym, looking sweaty and satisfied. They kissed goodbye in the parking lot, just like always. Troy got into his Porsche and drove away, completely oblivious to the signs on his doors. Lena followed in her BMW. My phone rang 5 minutes later. Adam. It was Lena, and she was furious. "What did you do?" "What are you talking about?" "Someone put signs on Troy's car. Horrible, embarrassing signs. And there were flyers in his gym locker with our picture on them." Wow, sounds like someone really doesn't like him. This has your fingerprints all over it. Lena, I'm at home watching football. I have no idea what you're talking about. The flyers had our picture on them, the one from the parking lot. You're the only one who could have taken that photo. Are you sure? Maybe Troy has other enemies. Guys like him usually do. She was quiet for a moment. Adam, this has to stop. What has to stop? You know what? This campaign of harassment, it's childish, and it's not going to change anything. I'm not harassing anyone. If people are upset with you and Troy, maybe it's because they don't like cheaters. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, figure out a way to make this work. I laughed. Make it work. You're pregnant with another man's child, and you want to make it work? The baby doesn't have to change everything. We can raise it together. Troy doesn't have to be involved. That's generous of you, Lena. Really generous. But I think I'll pass. After she hung up, I drove to the Crowbar for a celebratory beer. The place was packed for a Saturday afternoon, and the conversation was lively. "You hear about that insurance guy with the fancy car?" Rick, the bartender, asked me. "Someone put signs on it calling him a cheater. He drove all over town before he noticed." No kidding. "Yeah, and apparently there's photos of him messing around with some married woman. Real scandal." I ordered another beer and listened to the gossip spread through the bar like wildfire. By the time I left, everyone in the place knew about Troy Benton and his affair with the HR director from Beacon Insurance. Phase 1 was complete, but I was just getting started. Sunday morning, I mailed the envelope to the CEO of Beacon Insurance. Then I made additional copies and sent them to the company's board of directors, the Human Resources Department, and the local newspaper business editor. I also sent a copy to Troy's wife. Yes, Troy was married. It had taken me 3 days of research to find that out. His wife, Patricia, lived in the next town over with their 2 teenage children. According to her Facebook page, she thought her husband was working late to provide for their family. She deserved to know the truth. Monday morning, I got a call from Steve at the security desk. Holy Adam, all hell is breaking loose over here. What's happening? Troy got called into the CEO's office first thing this morning. So did Lena. There are rumors flying everywhere. Someone said they're both getting fired. Interesting. And there's more. Troy's wife showed up about an hour ago. She's in the lobby crying and yelling at anyone who listened. Security is trying to calm her down, but she's demanding to see Troy. Sounds like a busy day. Adam, I know you said Lena was cheating, but I didn't realize how bad this was going to get. Are you okay with all this? I thought about the question. Was I okay with destroying my wife's career and her lover's marriage? Was I okay with turning their affair into public entertainment? Yeah, Steve, I'm okay with it. That afternoon, Lena came home early. She looked like she'd been crying for hours, and her usually perfect appearance was disheveled. I've been suspended, she said without preamble. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. You did this. You sent those photos to my boss. Did I? Don't play games with me, Adam. I know it was you. I sat down in my recliner and looked at her. really looked at her. 3 days ago, she'd been confident and in control, playing me and Troy against each other like chess pieces. Now she looks broken. "You're right," I said. "It was me." She stared at me in shock. "You admit it." "Why wouldn't I? You destroyed our marriage, I destroyed your career. Seems fair."
Fair? Adam, I could lose my job. My reputation is ruined. People are calling me horrible names. What did you think would happen, Lena? Did you think you could have an affair, get pregnant by another man, and there wouldn't be consequences? I thought we could work it out privately. Privately? You mean quietly? You wanted me to keep your secret, raise another man's child, and pretend everything was fine. She sat down on the couch, looking defeated. What do you want from me? Nothing. I don't want anything from you anymore. So, what happens now? I smiled and she flinched again at my expression. Now we see how far this goes, because I'm not done yet. Tuesday morning brought news that exceeded even my expectations. Steve called me at work, barely able to contain his excitement. "Adam, you're not going to believe this. Troy got fired." "Just suspended?" "No, fired. Terminated. Escorted out by security with all his stuff in a cardboard box. And get this, his wife was waiting for him in the parking lot with a divorce lawyer." I had to sit down. "You're kidding." I watched the whole thing from the security desk. She served him with papers right there in front of everyone. He tried to get in his car, but she'd had it repossessed. The lawyer told him his assets were frozen pending the divorce proceedings. "What about Lena?" "Still suspended. But word is they're building a case to fire her, too. Intimate harassment, violation of company policy, creating a hostile work environment. The CEO is furious because Troy's uncle is threatening to pull his investment from the company." After I hung up, I sat in my office and tried to process what I'd accomplished. In less than a week, I destroyed Troy's marriage, his career, and his financial security. Lena was facing the same fate, but I wasn't satisfied yet. That evening, I drove to Troy's neighborhood. His house was dark, and there was a for sale sign on the front lawn. A moving truck was parked in the driveway. I parked across the street and watched Troy load boxes into the truck. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past few days. His perfect hair was unkempt, his expensive clothes were wrinkled, and he moved like a man who'd been beaten. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at Denny's on Route 9. 1 hour. Troy." I considered ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see what the man who destroyed my marriage had to say for himself. Denny's was nearly empty when I arrived. Troy was sitting in a corner booth, staring into a cup of coffee. He looked up when I approached, and I saw desperation in his eyes. "Thank you for coming," he said. I slid into the booth across from him. "You've got 5 minutes. I know you hate me. I know you want to destroy me. But I need you to call off the dog." "What dogs?" "Someone's been calling my new landlord, telling them I'm a predator. Someone sent photos of me and Lena to my kids' school. Someone called my mother and told her I was a cheater and a homewrecker." I kept my expression neutral. I hadn't done any of those things, but apparently my campaign had inspired others to take action. "Sounds like you've made a lot of enemies." "Please, I'll do anything. I'll leave town. I'll never contact Lena again. I'll pay you money. Just make it stop." "You'll pay me money?" "Whatever you want. I've got some savings left before Patricia's lawyer gets to it." I leaned back in the booth and studied him. "You know what I want, Troy?" "What?" "I want you to understand what you did to me. You didn't just sleep with my wife. You didn't just get her pregnant. You made me a joke. You made me the stupid husband who didn't know what was going on in his own house." "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there were consequences.
but you're not sorry you did it." He was quiet for a moment. "You're right. I'm not sorry I fell in love with her." "Love?" I laughed. "You think this was love?" "I know you don't believe me, but yes, I love Lena and she loves me." "If you love her so much, why are you here begging me to call off a campaign I didn't even start? Why aren't you fighting for her?" "Because I can't. I lost everything. My job, my house, my kids. I can't even pay for an apartment without my wife's permission. I have nothing left to offer her." "So your love is conditional on your bank account. That's not fair." "None of this is fair, Troy, but that's life." I stood up to leave, but he grabbed my arm. "What about Lena? What's going to happen to her?" "That's not my problem anymore. She's pregnant with my child. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. "It means I don't have to pay child support." I walked out of Denny's and left Troy sitting alone in the booth. As I drove home, I realized I felt empty rather than satisfied. Destroying Troy had been easier than I'd expected, but it hadn't filled the hole that Lena's betrayal had left in my chest. When I got home, I found Lena waiting for me in the kitchen. She'd been crying again, but there was something different about her now, something harder. "Troy's leaving town," she said. "I know. Did you know he came to see me today to say goodbye?" "I didn't, but I'm not surprised. He told me about your meeting at Denny's. He said you were cruel to him." "Was I?" "He's lost everything, Adam. His family, his job, his home. Isn't that enough?" I sat down at the kitchen table and looked at my wife. "Is it enough for you?" "What do you mean?" "You've lost your job, your reputation, your lover. Are you satisfied with how this turned out?" "Of course not. My life is ruined." "Then why should I be satisfied?" "Why should Troy be satisfied? We all made choices, Lena. Now we're all living with the consequences." She was quiet for a long moment. "What happens to us now?" "There is no us. There hasn't been an us for months. I know you're angry, but we have history together. 8 years of marriage. That has to count for something." "It did count for something. It counted for everything. But you threw it away for 3 months with your boss." "I made a mistake." "No, you made a choice. You chose him over me." "You chose to lie to me, to betray me, to try to trick me into raising another man's child. Those weren't mistakes. Those were decisions." She started crying again. "I don't know what to do. I don't have anywhere to go." "You can go to your sisters. You can go to your parents. You can figure it out." "They don't want me. My parents are ashamed of me. My sister says I made my bed and now I have to lie in it." "Smart woman, your sister." "Adam, please. I know I hurt you, but I need help." "I'm pregnant and alone, and I don't have a job." I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but I pushed it down. "You're not alone. You have Troy." "Troy's broke. He can barely take care of himself." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you got pregnant by him." She wiped her eyes and looked at me with something approaching hatred. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? You're enjoying watching me suffer." "Yeah," I said. "I am." "That's sick." "Maybe, but it's honest. You destroyed my life for your own pleasure. Now I'm returning the favor. I never tried to destroy your life, didn't you? You were going to let me raise another man's child. You were going to let me pay for your affair baby while you continued sleeping with Troy. How is that not destroying my life?" She didn't have an answer for that. "I'll be staying at a hotel tonight," she said finally. "I'll come back tomorrow to get some of my things." "Take your time. I'll be at work." After she left, I sat alone in the kitchen and tried to figure out what I was feeling. Satisfaction? Revenge? Emptiness? All of the above, I decided. My phone rang. It was Steve from the security desk. Adam, I wanted to give you a heads up. Lena's been officially terminated. Human Resources called her this afternoon. Thanks for letting me know. There's something else.
I heard she's been telling people that you're harassing her, that you're stalking her in Troy, making threatening phone calls, that kind of thing. Is she filing charges? I don't think so, but she's trying to make herself look like the victim in all this. Of course she is. After I hung up, I realized that Lena was probably going to escalate things. She was desperate, unemployed, and pregnant. She had nothing left to lose, which meant I needed to be ready for whatever she threw at me next. Wednesday morning, I woke up to find my truck's tires slashed and Psycho spray-painted across the windshield. Lena was sending me a message. I called the police and filed a report, making sure to mention that I was going through a messy separation and that my wife had been making threats. The officer who took the report was sympathetic, but not particularly optimistic about catching the vandal. Domestic situations like this, he said, they tend to escalate before they get better. You might want to think about getting a restraining order. I'll consider it. After the police left, I called my insurance company and arranged for the truck to be repaired. Then I called in sick to work and spent the day planning my next move. If Lena wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. That afternoon, I drove to the hotel where Lena was staying. The desk clerk, a young woman who looked bored out of her mind, was happy to chat. You looking for someone? She asked. My wife, Lena Harlow, blonde, about 5'6", probably looks stressed out. Oh yeah, room 237. She's been here since Monday. Seems nice enough, but she's had a lot of visitors. Visitors? Yeah, older couple. Looked like parents. Maybe they had a big fight in the lobby yesterday. Lots of yelling. Lena's parents had disowned her just like she'd said. That was useful information. Anyone else? Some guy in a beat-up Honda. Looked like he'd been sleeping in his car. He and your wife talked in the parking lot for about an hour this morning. Troy probably still trying to figure out how to salvage their relationship. I thanked the clerk and left, but not before slipping her my business card. If you see anything unusual, give me a call. I'm worried about my wife's mental state. That evening, I went to the Crowbar for dinner and information. The place was buzzing with gossip about the Beacon insurance scandal. You hear the latest? Rick asked as he poured my beer. That HR woman, the one who was sleeping with her boss. Someone trashed her hotel room. No kidding. Yeah, housekeeping found it this morning. Clothes thrown everywhere, mirror broken, real mess. She's claiming someone broke in, but the hotel says there's no sign of forced entry. Maybe she trashed it herself. That's what I'm thinking. Probably had a breakdown. Can't say I blame her. Her whole life fell apart in like a week. I finished my beer and went home, satisfied that Lena was unraveling exactly as I'd hoped. But when I pulled into my driveway, I found her waiting for me on the front porch. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes were wrinkled, and her eyes were red from crying. But there was something dangerous in her expression that made me cautious. We need to talk, she said. I thought we covered everything yesterday. I want to make a deal. What kind of deal? I'll disappear. I'll leave town, never contact you again, never ask you for anything. In exchange, you stop the harassment campaign. What harassment campaign? Don't play dumb. Someone's been calling the hotel telling them I'm a prostitute. Someone sent photos of me and Troy to my parents' church. Someone called my college roommate and told her I was a cheating. Again, I hadn't done any of those things, but the town's gossip network had taken on a life of its own. Sounds like you've made a lot of people angry. It's you. I know it's you. Prove it. She pulled out her phone and showed me a text message. Cheaters deserve everything they get. You're next. Did I send you that? It came from a block number. Then how do you know it was me? She was quiet for a moment, realizing she had no proof. "Look," I said, "I'm sorry people are being mean to you, but you brought this on yourself. I made a mistake. I'm trying to make it right by running away, by removing myself from the situation, by letting you get on with your life. That's generous of you, Lena, but I don't think I'm ready to let you off the hook yet." Her expression hardened. "Then you're going to regret it." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." She walked back to her car, a rental since Troy's Porsche had been repossessed. As she drove away, I realized that my wife was more dangerous than I'd given her credit for. The next morning, I found out just how dangerous. I woke up to police officers pounding on my door. When I answered, they pushed past me into the house. "Adam Harlow, you're under arrest for stalking and harassment." "What?" The lead officer, a sergeant named Martinez, read me my rights while his partner searched the house. "Your wife filed a complaint yesterday. Says you've been following her, making threatening phone calls, vandalizing her property." "That's not true." "She's got evidence, photos, recordings, witness statements. They found nothing incriminating in the house because there was nothing to find. But they arrested me anyway and took me downtown for booking." At the police station, I called a lawyer, a guy named Patterson, who specialized in divorce cases. He arrived 2 hours later looking skeptical. "Your wife's got a pretty compelling case," he said after reviewing the charges. "Photos of you following her, recordings of threatening phone calls, testimony from hotel staff about suspicious behavior." "The photos are real, but I wasn't stalking her. I was gathering evidence for the divorce, and I never made any threatening phone calls. Can you prove that? The calls came from blocked numbers. Anyone could have made them. But you had motive. She cheated on you, got pregnant by another man. A jury's going to think you snapped." I spent the night in jail thinking about how completely Lena had outmaneuvered me. While I'd been focused on destroying her reputation, she'd been building a case to have me arrested. The next morning, Patterson got me released on bail. The conditions were strict. No contact with Lena, no going within 500 feet of her hotel, no phone calls or text messages. "She's boxed you in," Patterson explained as we left the courthouse. "If you violate the restraining order, you go back to jail. If you don't, she gets to control the narrative of your divorce." "So, she wins?" "Not necessarily, but you're going to have to be smarter about this." That afternoon, I went back to work and tried to pretend everything was normal. But word had gotten around about my arrest, and my coworkers were treating me like a dangerous criminal. My boss, a decent guy named Frank, called me into his office at the end of the day. "Adam, I've got to ask, is any of this true?" "Which part? The stalking? The harassment? Because if it is, I can't have you working here anymore." "It's not true. My wife is trying to destroy me because I exposed her affair." Frank nodded slowly. "I figured it was something like that, but perception is reality in this business. If our clients think we employ stalkers, I understand. Take a week off, paid leave. Let this blow over, then come back and we'll pretend it never happened." I went home to an empty house and tried to figure out my next move. Lena had effectively neutralized me. I couldn't go near her, couldn't contact her, couldn't even hire someone else to watch her without violating the restraining order. But she'd made one mistake. She'd gotten overconfident. That evening my phone rang. It was Troy. "I heard about your arrest," he said. "What do you want to warn you? Lena's not done. She's planning something big." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm tired of being her pawn. She used me to hurt you, and now she's using the legal system to finish the job. I may be a lot of things, but I'm not going to be part of sending an innocent man to prison." "What's she planning?" "She's going to claim you threatened to kill her and the baby. She's got a friend who's going to testify that you called her and made death threats." "That's perjury." "Good luck proving it. Her friend will swear she heard you make the threats. Lena will cry on the witness stand about fearing for her life. You'll go to prison for 5 to 10 years.
I felt cold. When she's meeting with the prosecutor tomorrow morning. You've got maybe 24 hours before they issue a warrant for your arrest on felony charges. Why should I believe you? Because I've got nothing left to lose. She destroyed my life too, remember? This is my chance to get back at her. After he hung up, I sat in my kitchen and realized that I've been playing checkers while Lena was playing chess. She'd manipulated me into a position where any move I made would look like stalking or harassment, but she'd also given me the opening I needed. If she was going to frame me for making death threats, I needed to make sure the real story came out first. I spent the next 6 hours preparing my final gambit. The next morning, I called in every favor I had. Steve from the security company, Danny from the garage, Jake from the gym, Rick from the crowbar, even Patterson, my lawyer, though he wasn't happy about what I was asking him to do. This is risky, Patterson warned me. If it backfires, you're looking at serious prison time. It's not going to backfire. How can you be sure? Because I know Lena. She's smart, but she's arrogant. She thinks she's already won. At 10 a.m., I walked into the prosecutor's office where Lena was scheduled to meet with District Attorney Sarah Chen. I wasn't supposed to be there. It violated my restraining order, but I was counting on that. Lena was sitting in the waiting area with a woman I didn't recognize, probably the friend who was going to lie about the death threats. When she saw me, her face went white. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. "I'm here to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life." "Security!" she called out, but I held up my hands. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm here to tell the truth." The receptionist had already called for help, and 2 baifs appeared within seconds. But before they could arrest me, I pulled out an envelope and handed it to the receptionist. "Please give this to District Attorney Chen. Tell her it's evidence in the Harlow case." The baifs grabbed me, but DHN appeared in the doorway of her office. She was a small, sharp-eyed woman with a reputation for being tough but fair. "What's going on out here? This man is violating a restraining order." One of the baifs said, "I'm here to prevent a miscarriage of justice," I said, "and I'm here voluntarily. I'll submit to arrest as soon as DHN reviews the evidence in that envelope." Chen looked intrigued. "What kind of evidence?" "Proof that my wife has been planning to frame me for crimes I didn't commit." Lena jumped up. "Don't listen to him. He's dangerous. He's been stalking me for weeks." "Have I?" I asked calmly. "Then explain this." I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Troy's voice filled the waiting room. "She's going to claim you threatened to kill her and the baby. She's got a friend who's going to testify that you called her and made death threats. Her friend will swear she heard you make the threats. Lena will cry on the witness stand about fearing for her life." The room went silent. Lena's face had gone from white to gray. That's taken out of context," she stammered. "Is it?" Jen asked, opening the envelope I'd given her. Inside were copies of everything. The DNA test results, photos of Lena and Troy together, security logs from their office building, and signed statements from witnesses who could testify about their affair. "Miss Harlow," Chen said after reviewing the documents, "it appears you've been less than honest with my office." "I can explain." "I'm sure you can. But first, I'd like to hear from your friend here." Chen turned to the woman sitting next to Lena. "You're prepared to testify that Mr. Harlow threatened to kill his wife." The woman looked between Lena and me, clearly panicking. Well, I thought I heard you heard, or you did hear," Lena said. "I'm not asking what Lena said. I'm asking what you heard." The woman crumbled under Chen's stare. "I didn't hear anything. Lena asked me to say I did, but I didn't actually hear any threats." Chen nodded and turned back to Lena. "Miss Harlow, you're under arrest for filing a false police report and conspiracy to commit perjury." "Wait!" Lena cried as the baifs moved toward her.
You don't understand. He destroyed my life. He got me fired, ruined my reputation, turned everyone against me.
Did he break any laws? Chen asked. Lena was quiet. Did he threaten you with physical violence?
Not exactly.
Did he actually stalk you, or did he gather evidence of your adultery? Lena's silence was answer enough. As they led her away in handcuffs, she turned back to me with pure hatred in her eyes.
This isn't over, Adam.
Yes, it is, I replied. An hour later, I was back home, a free man. The charges against me had been dropped, and Lena was facing felony charges for her attempted frame job. My phone rang. It was Troy.
I heard what happened, he said. Thank you for not throwing me under the bus. You helped me when you didn't have to. I don't forget things like that. What happens now?
Now? Now you disappear like you promised. Leave town, start over somewhere else, and never contact me or Lena again. And if I don't, then I'll remember that you helped destroy my marriage, and I'll make sure everyone in your new town knows exactly who you are. He hung up without another word. That evening, I went to the Crowbar to celebrate. The place was packed, and everyone wanted to buy me a drink. Word had already spread about Lena's arrest and the conspiracy she tried to pull off. You know what? I don't understand, Rick said as he poured my beer. Why'd she try to frame you? She could have just divorced you and moved on. Because she's not just a cheater, I replied. She's a sociopath. She couldn't stand the idea that I'd beaten her at her own game. Well, she's beaten now. What are you going to do next? I thought about it. My marriage was over. My wife was facing prison time. Her lover had fled town in disgrace. I'd won, completely and totally. So why didn't I feel better? I'm going to go home, I said finally, and try to figure out what comes after revenge. As I walked out of the Crowbar, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You may have won this round, but the game isn't over. I'll be back. L. I deleted the message and kept walking. Lena could make all the threats she wanted from her jail cell. She'd already played her best hand and lost. The game was over. I'd won. But as I drove home to my empty house, I realized that winning felt a lot like losing. I destroyed my wife, her lover, and their lives. But I hadn't gotten my old life back. I just created a new kind of emptiness. Still, when I thought about Lena sitting in a jail cell, planning her next move against me, I couldn't help but smile. Let her plan. I'd be ready. After all, I'd learned from the best. 3 months later, I was sitting in that same kitchen where this whole mess started, reading the newspaper over coffee. The headline on the local section read, "Former insurance executive sentenced to 2 years for false police report." Lena had pled guilty to avoid a longer sentence. She'd serve 18 months in minimum security, followed by probation. The baby, Troy's baby, had been born while she was awaiting trial. Social services had placed the child with Lena's sister, who'd finally stepped up to help. Troy had disappeared completely. Last I'd heard, he was working construction in Arizona under his middle name. His ex-wife had gotten everything in the divorce settlement. As for me, I'd gotten my old job back, bought a new truck, and started dating a woman named Carol who worked at the library. She knew the whole story. Everyone in town did. But she didn't judge me for it. "You did what you had to do," she'd said when I told her about the revenge campaign. "Some people think they can destroy other people's lives without consequences. You prove them wrong." My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Unknown number. "Hello, Adam. It's me, Lena, calling from prison." "What do you want?" "I'm getting out next month. Early release for good behavior." "Congratulations." "I want to see you to talk." "We have nothing to talk about."
I think we do.
I've had a lot of time to think about what happened between us, about what I did wrong.
You mean besides the adultery, the lies, and trying to frame me for felony charges? I want to make amends. I laughed. Amends? What could you possibly do to make amends? I could tell you the truth. The whole truth about everything. I already know the truth. No, you don't. You know part of it. But there's more things about Troy. About why I really had the affair. About what I was really planning. Despite myself, I was curious. What kind of things? Not over the phone. Meet me when I get out. One conversation, then I'll disappear forever. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to hang up and never speak to her again. But part of me, the part that had spent months planning her destruction, wanted to know what other secrets she was hiding. One conversation, I said finally. Public place, 1 hour. Thank you, Adam. Don't thank me yet. You might not like what I have to say. After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen and wondered if I was making a mistake. Lena was manipulative, dangerous, and completely untrustworthy. Meeting with her was probably stupid, but I'd spent so much time and energy destroying her that I felt like I owed it to myself to hear whatever final revelation she wanted to share. Besides, what was the worst that could happen? She was a convicted felon on probation. I was a free man with nothing left to lose. If she wanted to play one last game, I was ready. After all, I'd already beaten her once. How hard could it be to do it again? 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 Could it be to do it again?